Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Igcse Biology Help. In today's video, I'm going to be solving the February-March 2021 Paper 2, Variant 2. So please make sure to subscribe to my channel and like my videos in order to support this channel. Now let's start solving. Question number 1. Wood lice are small organisms that can live in damp places. In an experiment, 3 live wood lice are put into a glass container. The diagram shows what happens after 30 minutes. Which characteristic of living organism is shown by this experiment? Now over here we can see that in the damp place or the damp situation, there was over here a lot of wood lice or insects. So they're all accumulated in this area where there is damp conditions. But in the dry area, there is no wood lice at all. There is just an empty space. So they are showing sensitivity. So our answer is going to be D. 2. Which species can breed with a species to produce fertile offspring? Now we know that in order to produce a fertile offspring, both of the species have to be the same species. So this is not going to work or this one because they're not the same species. They have to be the same species and the same genus in order to produce a fertile offspring. So D is going to be our answer. Number 3, what is the correct order of arthropod groups from those with the most legs to those with the fewest legs? Now we know that most legs actually goes with the myriapods, so we're going to be choosing between C and D over here. Over here in C saying myriapods, crustaceans, arachnids, and then insects. Now this is actually correct because as we know the insects have 3 pairs of legs, so that means they have 6 pairs of they have 6 legs in total, and arachnids have actually 4 pairs, so that is 8 legs over here, so they're actually descending. And crustaceans have 5 or more pairs of legs, that means they have at least 10 legs. So this is actually the order from the most to the lowest, which is the insects. So our answer is going to be C. Number 4, the diagram shows 4 animal cells as seen under a light microscope. What will be present at X? Now over here, these are animal cells. So this is going to be a cell membrane. This whole region that I'm shading, this is a cell membrane of one animal cell. Now over here, there is also another cell membrane because this is another animal cell. So in this area, there is going to be 2 cell membranes because these are 2 animal cells over here that are joined together. So it's going to be 2 cell membranes. Number 5, the diagram shows a root hair cell. How is this cell modified for the absorption of water? Now we know that the root hair cell has the function of absorbing water and absorbing maybe mineral ions as well. So it's going to have a large surface area in order to absorb the largest amount of water or the largest amount of mineral ions as soon as possible. So if it has a large surface area, the absorption is going to be faster. Therefore, it's going to be C, it has larger surface area. Number 6, a student draws a diagram of a mitochondrion. The diagram has a magnification of 20,000. The diagram is 5 centimeters long. What is the actual size of the mitochondrion? Now over here in these type of questions, I draw this triangle, which I call the ion triangle. This triangle will help you to identify the type of calculations you should be making according to the question. Now over here, they're asking for the actual size, so we're going to be dividing the image size divided by the magnification. So the image size, they have said over here that it is 5 centimeters, but we have to convert that to this unit. So it's going to be, if it's centimeter, it's going to be times 10,000. If it's millimeter, it's going to be times 1,000. So we're going to be doing 5 times 10,000, which is going to be 50,000, divided by magnification, which is 20,000. This is going to give us D, 2.5. Number 7, a jar of air was placed upside down on top of a jar containing a brown gas as shown. Which process has taken place? Now over here we can see that there was some sort of diffusion because the brown gas has moved over here, and then we can see in the next photo after 1 hour all of the brown gas was actually all over the jar inside. So we can say that the fusion took place upwards and downwards. So our answer is going to be A, because we can see that the brown gas is all over, so that means it diffused upwards and downwards. Number 8, which row describes active transport? Now we know that active transport is the opposite of actually diffusion and osmosis, so it's going to be actually between C and D over here. Now C says lower concentration, higher concentration to a region of higher concentration from a region of lower. This is so far correct. Energy needed from respiration, no. Well, this is actually incorrect, because we know that active transport is an energy consuming process and it requires energy from respiration. So actually our answer is going to be D for this question. The basis of one strand of DNA molecule has the sequence CAGCT. What is the sequence of bases on the other strand? Now we know that base A pairs with base T and base C pairs with G. So we're going to be choosing actually over here G, T, C, G, and A. So that is exactly option B. Number 10, the graph shows the effect of temperature on the rate of an enzyme-controlled reaction. Which statements are correct? Number 1 says the collision frequency between substrate and enzyme increases between X and Y. This is actually correct because the rate was continuously increasing until point Y. So that means that the temperature, whenever it increases, the collision frequency is going to increase. So that is actually correct. Number 2, the shape of active site is altered between Y and Z. Now, this is actually correct because it was actually decreasing the rate over here. And when the rate decreases, this is going to indicate that there is some sort of alternation that happened to the active site change, which means the active site has melted down or changed because of the heat or the high temperature. So, therefore, the substrate is no longer going to fit the active site. So, this is actually correct. The enzyme is denatured at X and Z. Now, this is not correct because at X it wasn't denatured. It was just not in its optimum temperature. So this is actually an incorrect statement. So the only correct ones we have over here is 1 and 2, which leaves us with option B. 11. Which graph represents the effect of pH on the activity of a digestive enzyme? So over here we know that the pH graph is going to look like this because at a specific pH over here it's going to have the highest, and then over here in the pH that is before the optimum it's going to be increasing because it's getting nearer the optimum pH over here. So whenever the pH they pass, it's going to decrease like this. So it's going to look like this. It's going to look like a symmetrical shape, but the temperature is not going to look like a symmetrical shape over here. As we saw, it wasn't a symmetrical shape. It was like that. So I don't know how to draw it, but it looked like that over here. So this is not symmetrical really, but in the pH it looks symmetrical. So this is just a tip for you if you want to know the difference between the pH and the temperature graphs. So B is going to be our answer. Number 12, in which process is oxygen a waste product? Now we know that the oxygen is never a waste product except for the photosynthesis. Oxygen is actually going to be released by the plant. So as we know that carbon dioxide is taken and actually water, so it's going to release oxygen and glucose. So actually this process is photosynthesis. 13, which layer in the leaf contains interconnecting air spaces? This is actually a description of the spongy mesophyll cells, so we're going to be choosing C. 14, where does egestion take place? Now we know that egestion takes place in the anus, so our answer is going to be D. 15. The diagram shows a fat globule P in one part of the alimentary canal and the same fat globule Q as it appears in another part of the alimentary canal. In which parts of the alimentary canal are P and Q found? Now we know that P is going to be found in the esophagus because it was just ingested into the body. So this is going to be found in the small intestine because after all of the breaking down and all of the emulsification, it's going to look like that. So actually our answer is going to be C. 16. The diagram shows enzymes and the products of reaction they catalyze. Which diagram matches the enzymes with the correct products? Now, amylase will break down starch to produce simple sugars, and lipase will break down fat to produce fatty acids and glycerol, and protease will break down protein to produce amino acids. So our answer will be C. 17. Which statement about a function of the xylem tissue is correct? A says it carries glucose from the roots to the leaf. This is incorrect. It actually carries water. B, it helps to support the stems and leaves. This is actually correct. So our answer is going to be B. Now, why is C incorrect? It is the only transport tissue in the plant. Now, no, this is incorrect. There is also phloem tissue, which transports sucrose and amino acids. So this is not the only transport tissue in the plant. D says it carries water away from the leaves. Now, no, this is an incorrect option because as we know that the xylem vessel is actually unidirectional, so it only carries water away from the roots to the leaves, not away from the leaves. So it only goes in one direction. So that's why the answer is going to be B. 18. What is part of the definition of transpiration? A says the loss of water vapor from the plant leaves by evaporation of water at the surface of the mesophyll cells. Now, this is actually the correct definition, so our answer is going to be A. 19. The diagram shows the circulation of blood in an organism. In which part of the organism is the location of the capillaries in the box? Now, we know that the capillaries over here are actually taking in the carbon dioxide and they are providing oxygen. So this shows that this is the lungs actually. So this is a mammalian lung because this is a double circulation. We can see that the heart was going in twice in this circulation. So our answer is going to be C. 20. The photomicrograph shows human blood. Which component can carry out the process of phagocytosis? Now the answer is going to be A because this is the diagram that shows the phagocyte. 21. Which diagram shows how vaccination can lead to long-term immunity? Now we know that once the antigen is injected, it's going to make the lymphocyte multiply to produce antibodies and memory cells. So this is actually the correct diagram. 21 is going to be A. Now, this is incorrect because, of course, the memory cells are not going to multiply first. It's actually going to be the lymphocyte. 22. Air entering human lungs contain approximately 21% oxygen and 0.04 carbon dioxide. Which row shows the concentrations of these gases leaving the lungs? So that means this is the expired air. So we know that the expired air has less oxygen and more carbon dioxide because of the respiration. So we're going to be choosing the numbers that we have took in the respiration lesson, which is 16 in the expired air, and there is 4% carbon dioxide in the expired air. So C is going to be the answer. 23. After running a fast race, a student had pains in their leg muscles. The pain was caused by the buildup of a product of anaerobic respiration. Which product caused the pain? Now we know that in the anaerobic respiration in humans, in the muscles, there is actually lactic acid as a product. So the answer is going to be lactic acid, C. 24. The diagram shows the production and excretion of materials from the human body. What are V, W, X, Y, and Z in the diagram? Now we know over here that X is actually going to be the lungs because there is carbon dioxide that is going in. So we know that the lungs take in the carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. So this is actually the lungs. So we're going to be first of all choosing from B and C. Now B says that V is anaerobic respiration. Now, this is actually incorrect because anaerobic respiration in humans doesn't produce carbon dioxide. It actually just produces lactic acid. So it's going to be C, aerobic respiration. 25. What is the function of a synapse? A says to allow impulses to travel in both directions. Now, this is actually incorrect because it just ensures a one-way direction. B says to ensure impulses travel in one direction. This is actually the correct option. 26. Hormones and the nervous system both control our bodies. Which statement about the control provided by our hormones is correct? Now we know that the hormones have a slow reaction, but it's going to be long lasting. So that is actually the opposite of the nerve control, which is fast, but it is actually short lasting. So it's just the opposite. So let's check the options. A says fast response and long lasting. This is incorrect. They are not fast. C says slow response and long lasting. This is actually correct. So C is going to be our answer. 27. Auxin is a chemical produced by plants. It controls plant growth. Which statement about auxin is correct? Now let's read the options. A says auxin affects the cells only where it is made. Now this is incorrect. It actually moves in the cell by diffusion. It's made in the shoot tip. So no, this is actually incorrect. B says auxin is equally distributed in response to light from one direction. This is actually incorrect. It's unequally distributed, so B is incorrect as well. C, auxin elongates the cells in the shoot tip. Now this is not correct. D says auxin is made in the shoot tip. This is actually the correct option, so D is going to be our answer. 28. How do some antibiotics kill bacteria? A says they damage the cell wall. This is actually the correct option, because as we know, bacteria works on the cell walls, making the bacteria stop making cell walls, so they are damaged. So this is actually the correct option. When the cell walls are damaged, the water is going to enter and burst to the cell, so the bacteria is going to be damaged and killed. 29. Some statements about asexual reproduction are listed. Which statements are correct? Now let's read the options. Offspring are genetically identical. This is actually correct, because asexual reproduction depends on mitosis, which produces genetically identical cells. Of course, D is going to be incorrect, because this is actually description of meiosis. 3. Only one parent is required. This is correct, because it is not requiring gametes. So only one parent can just perform mitosis and produce asexual reproduction. So 4 is saying 2 parents are required. Of course not. So our answer is going to be A, 1 and 3. 30. Which types of contact between humans can spread HIV? Now we know that HIV can be spread from one person to another by blood transfusions and sexual intercourse, but not by saliva. So our answer is going to be A, because saliva doesn't spread around the HIV. 31. Which method of birth control works by preventing an egg from being released? Now this is the contraceptive method, because as we know, the pills actually have estrogen and progesterone, which can prevent the egg from being released. So our answer is going to be B. 32. What is defined as a thread-like structure of DNA carrying genetic information in the form of genes? Now this is exactly the definition of chromosomes, so our answer is going to be B. 33. The statements describe steps in protein synthesis. Which sequence of steps is correct? Now over here we're going to be checking if we're going to be starting with 1 or 3. Okay, number 1 says copies of the gene are carried to the cytoplasm as are mRNA molecules. 3 says the gene coding for a protein is copied in the nucleus. Now of course 3 is going to be first, because this is after the copy of the gene is copied and everything is copied into the mRNA. So of course we're going to be choosing between C and D. C says 3 and then 1, which is the copies of the gene are carried to the cytoplasm, and then 4, which is the mRNA molecules pass through the ribosome, and then 2, which is each ribosome assembles amino acid in the protein molecule. So of course this is the correct sequence, as we know, so C is going to be the answer. 34. A sunflower has 17 chromosomes in each pollen nucleus. These nuclei are produced by the process of meiosis, of course, because as we know that gametes are produced by meiosis. So we're going to be choosing between A and B over here. They are genetically different, So our answer is going to be B, because over here it's going to be genetically different, because as we know, meiosis produces genetically different, not identical. 35. A man heterozygous for the sickle cell anemia allele HBS HbA has children with a woman who is homozygous for the normal hemoglobin allele HbA HbA. What is the probability that the first child will be resistant to malaria? So let's do the cross over here. HBS and HbA, and then we're going to be crossing it with HbA and HbA. Now the first child is going to be heterozygous over here. So the second child is going to also be heterozygous, HbA, HbS. Now the third child is going to be HbA, HbA. And then lastly, the fourth child is going to be HbA, HbA. So this leaves us with a 50% chance of the child having a heterozygous or being resistant to the malaria disease. So our answer is going to be 0.5. 36. Which leaf feature is an adaptation of the xerophytes to their environment? Now we know that the xerophytes are the plants that live in the desert. Let's read the options. A says hair surrounding the stomata. Now this is actually correct because it's going to gather moisture, so it's going to decrease the transpiration rate, because as we know, the transpiration rate is decreased when the humidity increases. So hairs is going to just increase the humidity, so our answer is going to be A. 37. The graph shows the change in population of an organism over time in an ecosystem. Now over here we know that X is going to be exponential phase because it has the birth rate, it's increasing, and it's more than the death rate. So of course we're going to be choosing between C and D. Y is going to be the stationary and Z is going to be the death phase, because there is more death more than birth, and in Y the death and birth rates are equal, so our answer is going to be D. 38. The diagram shows the structure of a bacterium. The presence of structure X is one reason why bacteria are used in genetic engineering. What is structure X? Now we know, of course, this is the plasmid, because this is where all the genetic engineering takes place and where the DNA, human DNA, is inserted. So D is going to be our answer. 39. When nitrates enter a lake, they cause rapid growth of algae on the surface of water. This causes the following changes in the lake. In which order do these stages occur? Now we know, of course, that first of all the producers are going to die, and we're going to be choosing between C and D. Now C says that 4 and then 2, which is fish and other aquatic organisms, die. This is of course incorrect. So we're going to be choosing D, because 4 and then followed by 3. 3 is actually aerobic respiration in the decomposers increases, because there is an increase in the death of producers over here. Number 1, the concentration of dissolved oxygen in the water decreases, because this is a result of the aerobic respiration of the decomposers. And then finally, the fish and other aquatic animals will die. So this is actually the correct sequence. 40. The action of which type of bacteria would cause the soil to be lacking in nitrates? Now we know that the soil will have denitrification, which is breaking down the nitrates to nitrogen in the atmosphere. So actually it's going to be B over here. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and like my videos in order to support this channel, as I am fairly new to the YouTube community. If you need me to solve for you a specific paper, make sure to leave a comment and I'll reply to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching and good luck.